guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video where I wanted to tell you about the time I had 20 gerbils. So I asked over on Twitter if this would be a story time you guys wanted to hear, and the majority of you said yes, so I'm making this video today because a lot of you don't know about my past history with owning pets. Most of you know me for owning rats and mice, but I have had a whole wide variety of different pets in the past, and I thought it'd be interesting to talk about some of them. Now, in particular, I do get asked whether I would have guinea pigs, gerbils, rabbits. Those seem to be the top 3 pets I get asked about the most, and the answer is I've had all 3 of those in the past, which you may not have known about, and I don't think I'd want to own them again, having owned them previously. So it's fair to say that I've had my fair share of gerbils. I think I've had my life quota of gerbils, and for that reason I don't think I ever want to own them again, but I wanted to tell you the story of how I ended up with about 20 of them. Also, please bear in mind, this was about 12 years ago, this wasn't a recent mistake. I was about 11 at the time when I got my first 2 gerbils, and the information back then was not as good as it is today. Obviously pet care does evolve, but the internet was not as big as it is when it comes to information, and mostly we only had books or the pet store to rely on, which is not a great option. Even now it's not a great option, but that was what we mostly had to rely on, and my pet care at the time obviously is now really outdated, but I thought it would still be interesting to share my experience. There's definitely some life lessons to be learned in this, and I thought it would be an interesting story for you guys to hear too. So yeah, it all started with my first 2 gerbils. I'd had about 2 or 3 hamsters already, and I wanted something different. I was so interested in many different types of pets. I think that's also when I started asking for a leopard gecko. Thank God I didn't get one at the time because I don't think I would have been able to care for it at all, but I did decide to get 2 gerbils. I got a black one and also I got a Burmese one, and they were called Dash and Digger. So I did purchase these from Pets at Home. I think these were the last pets I ever purchased from a chain pet store or a pet store when I was younger, and you'll find out why in a minute, but I asked them if they had any gerbils and they didn't have any kind of on the storefront, and then she brought out a massive bucket full of the gerbils. I think there was about 20 to pick from, and I wanted 2 that were different colours. Most of them were black, so I picked out a black one which was Digger, and then I also picked out the Burmese one which was Dash, and they were already in the same bin together, and then I took them home. So weirdly enough, I had these gerbils for a couple of months and nothing happened. I didn't see anything suspicious or suspect anything. I did have them in my bedroom with me at the time, and I didn't notice anything. We did also upgrade them to like a tank setup, which was slightly bigger, probably not the correct size, but we did upgrade them. We also moved house, and I'm not too sure whether it was these changes that sparked something in them, but I didn't notice anything. So fast forward to Christmas Day, I went to visit my dad's house and I opened all of my presents. That's where the gerbils were living, and I opened all of my presents. I think that year we got a Wii, which I thought was the best present ever, but little did I know the best present was yet to come, even though this is not an ideal situation at all. For me, 11 years old and animal loving and animal obsessed, the best present was yet to come. So after I opened my presents, I went into the kitchen to get a drink, and the gerbils were kind of on the kitchen counter so the family could interact with them, and I walked past the gerbil tank and I saw like a little black jelly bean kind of going like this along the side, and I had to look really closely because I thought I was imagining it, but nope, there was a tiny baby gerbil walking in the bedding, and I just kind of put everything down and shouted, "Oh my god, Dad, there's a baby gerbil in the gerbil tank." Obviously, I'm pretty sure my dad thought I was kidding, but everyone kind of ran in there, and there was in fact a tiny baby black gerbil walking in the substrate, and we captured this on camera. I have actually got the footage. I've got all the pictures and the footage of the gerbils. It does look like it's been filmed on a potato because this was 12 years ago, but here is the footage of the tiny baby gerbil as it was walking along the bedding. So obviously we were really shocked because these 2 gerbils had been living together for months and they hadn't had any babies, and obviously we were sold them as a male, so finding out your pet is a different sex is super weird. It did take a while for me to get my head around it. It turned out that Dash, the Burmese one, was actually a female, and they had had a litter of 4 babies on Christmas Day. Technically I think they're about 11 days old at that point, but we discovered them on Christmas Day, so we gave them Christmas names. So we had holly, ivy, mistletoe and tinsel. 2 of them were black like their dad and 2 of them were Burmese like their mum, and as I said before, they were about 11 days old when we discovered them. The funny thing was, me being 11 at the time, I just went away and did 10 minutes of googling of how to sex baby gerbils, and then I was off. I was handling them and trying to sex them, and I do have a clip of that. My voice is super awkward because I'm 11 years old, but I thought it'd be really funny to put in this video, so I'll insert that in a second. But I just found it funny that at 11 I managed to correctly sex every single gerbil, even in the litters after this one, which I'll get onto in a second. But I managed to correctly sex every single gerbil, but whoever did it in the pet store did a terrible job because we ended up in this mess in the first place. So yeah, here is the footage of baby Emmy picking up the gerbils for the first time and finding out if they were male or female.
There's 2 black and 2 grey. Oh, I got it. Oof.
Oh, she's sleeping.
Yeah, beautiful.
Or he. Shall I check?
Yeah, you check then.
Come on, little one. Oh, little girl, I think.
Little girl.
I think, maybe. Daddy, video underneath, it's hilarious. Hello. Come see.
Come see camera.
Come see the camera, look.
What are you two doing?
So obviously I was super stoked about the whole situation. I was so excited to have baby gerbils, but obviously it was not an ideal situation. The pet store did sell us the wrong sex gerbils and they were just popping out babies all over the place. Obviously gerbils, they can actually mate as soon as they give birth, and we only discovered these babies when they were about 11 days old, meaning that Dash was already pregnant, and I think the gerbil gestation period is about 24 days. So about 13 days later, she did give birth to her second litter.
Blinky. Harvey. Oops. Scamp. Winnie.
So obviously the correct thing to do in this situation is to call the pet store that sold you the wrong animals and explain the whole situation to them. That's what we did. I'm pretty sure the day after Boxing Day, we were on the phone to Pets at Home explaining the situation and hoping they'd offer some sort of solution or at least own up to their mistake, and we never really got anything like that from them. I think back then, because we didn't really have the internet and we didn't know anyone that was really interested in gerbils, we were kind of overwhelmed with the prospect of having to find them homes for ourselves. Obviously now if this happens to you, you can kind of network and find them safe homes without having to take them back to the pet store, but I'm pretty sure they do have some sort of policy regarding this. They should take the babies back from accidental litters caused by them incorrectly sexing the gerbils, but they didn't want to do this at all. They wouldn't offer that as a solution, so we didn't really know what to do in this situation. I'm pretty sure the only thing they offered was we'd give you extra bedding and extra tanks. I don't know if we took them up on that offer, maybe we did, but we were kind of hoping they would take some of the gerbils back, but they didn't want to accept any sort of responsibility, so we had to handle all of that ourselves. So obviously at this point we're a little bit overwhelmed. There's like gerbils everywhere. We've got them in bin cages, we've got them in tanks, there's gerbils in cages next to the fridge, there's gerbils in cages on the worktop, there's gerbils in bin cages on my bedroom floor. I at the time was loving this was great, but obviously I'm sure my dad was probably really stressed by the situation, and then it came to us to have to find them all homes. Now this is the part I can't remember the details to. I can't remember why we allowed this to happen, but we did end up having a third litter, and I can't for the life of me think why we allowed this to happen. But I think what happened was holly, ivy, mistletoe and tinsel went to their new homes already. My aunt took 2 of them, and I think a family friend took the other 2. And then obviously we had the second litter, and I think something about them being all male, so we couldn't have any girls to put with Dash, and Dash would have been by herself. We would have then had to go to the pet store and purchase more gerbils to live with her, because gerbils are social animals. I think we didn't want to go to the pet store and have the same thing happen again, so I think we had a third litter to try and get some females, I think. I don't recommend doing this at all, but I think that's why we had a third litter. I can't remember, but we did end up with a third litter, which is kind of bad, but it did happen. So yeah, by this point things were crazy, but we'd kind of got things under control at this point. We had the third litter, I sexed them all correctly, and then we split them into 2 groups. We had the girl group and also the boy group. So in the boy group was Digger, which was the dad, and then we also had Doodle and Dizzy. I stuck to like the D theme. And then in with Dash, the mum, we had Daisy and Dusty. Now I wish back then we could have given all of the babies really good homes, but as I said, the internet was not a big thing. The only way to really advertise anything was to put bits of paper on notice boards. This probably sounds so foreign if you're really young, but the only way to advertise anything was to put notices on notice boards. I think we tried to do that in a pet store. Nothing really came of it, and we did have a local pet store that wasn't Pets at Home because Pets at Home didn't want to take any of the babies. I'm pretty sure we tried a second Pets at Home, maybe we gave them a few of them. We had a lot of baby gerbils at this point, and I think we ended up giving them to a local pet store that sold them for like £2, £3, not very much. But I just remember crying the whole car ride home, not just because I wanted to keep them all, I knew that wasn't possible, but I was just crying not knowing where they were going to end up. So yeah, super traumatic for me. I knew even at that point that them being in a pet store was not the best situation, but I was 11, I couldn't really do much about it, so I just cried the entire car ride home. But yeah, at that point we didn't have 20 gerbils plus anymore. We only had the 2 groups with 3 gerbils in each, which was a lot more manageable than having 20 plus gerbils, but it was wild. I don't regret experiencing it because it was fun. When I was 11, I loved playing with the baby gerbils, and they were super cute, but definitely not something I ever want to experience again. And I think that's probably why that was the last time I, as an 11-year-old, and also my family, supported getting pets from a chain pet store. So obviously you know how I feel about supporting chain pet stores or pet stores in general when it comes to purchasing animals, and this is exactly why. Unfortunately, I still hear from a lot of people that are experiencing accidental litters with rats, with mice, with gerbils, whatever it is you're purchasing, as well as the other concerns with purchasing a pet from a pet store, like the health issues or the behavioural issues. I still hear about this a lot, especially if you're not familiar with a certain animal and you don't know how to sex them, and they are social animals. You could end up with an accidental litter, which is not ideal. So yeah, that is the story of how we ended up with about 20 gerbils at one point. Looking back, I 10 out of 10 would not repeat the process. Even though I did enjoy the experience, and being a kid, I enjoyed having all of these baby gerbils around. Looking back at it now as an adult, I would definitely not want a repeat of the whole process again. So although this happened well over 12 years ago, unfortunately it's something I still see happening today. With people getting rats or mice, any other small pet, I still see people having accidental litters, and most of the time these are because they got them from a pet store, and that's one of the many reasons I do advise avoiding pet stores when it comes to buying your animals, because you never know what's going to happen, whether it's behavioural issues, health issues, or accidental litters like the one that I experienced. So of course this doesn't just happen with animals from a pet store. I do see people having this happen with rats or mice they've got from a breeder, and this is going to be with backyard breeders. No reputable breeder is not going to know how to sex the animals they're giving you, and I do see this happening a lot in the rat community. People getting accidental litters from pets they've got from breeders. This does unfortunately happen with those too. So this is why I urge you to be as careful as possible when it comes to sourcing your animals and where you get them from. Please make sure you're using a reputable breeder that knows what they're doing, or you go to a rescue that is also going to know how to sex the animals too. As cute as the idea of having loads of babies running around and having an accidental litter might be, it's really not an ideal situation, especially for the mother. Most of the time she's going to be a baby herself, and it can be super stressful and also dangerous for her. So that's why I advise you guys to avoid any situations that may put you at more of a risk of having missexed animals that lead to accidental litters. But yeah, that was the story of my gerbils. I hope you guys found it interesting learning about my past history owning gerbils. A lot of you do still ask me whether I would own more in the future, and the answer to that is 99% no. Never say never, but I'm really not interested in owning them again. I've been there, I've done that. I've had about 20 of them and I've had my fair share, so I don't think I want any more gerbils in the future. There's no real reason for this, I just don't find them as personable as mice and rats. I did enjoy interacting with my gerbils. Some of them were super friendly and they were so funny to interact with, but I do prefer more personable rodents like mice and rats, and I don't think whilst I'm owning mice or rats there's much room in my heart for gerbils again, but I enjoyed them when I had them. Do you guys own gerbils, or have you had experience with accidental litters in the past? Please let me know down in the comments. I'd like to hear your experience because it happens to the best of us. We have to learn from these experiences and try not to let them happen again, but I did enjoy the experience when I was 11. I enjoyed having all of the gerbils. Let me know if anything similar has happened to you too. And of course, also don't forget to subscribe to see any more animal videos from me, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!